Hey everyone, welcome to a new section in the cinematography course. Today we are talking about lighting techniques and practices. This is an awesome section. This is a cool course because Will is so professional and we were actually shooting on a film set and we got to use all sorts of professional equipment while teaching this course. And so in this section, we're going to be showing you a live demonstration of lighting and how Will lights for an interview setup, for a romantic sort of comedy scene, and then for a darker horror, scary scene. And he's really going to show you how just by changing the lights, you can change the entire mood of a scene. So this is going to be a fun section. There's other stuff that we're going to be talking about with lighting, but enjoy it, and I'll pass it over to Will.
So why do we use lights? We can use lights to tell the story, to create a mood, to really kind of just exemplify what we're shooting. We have a lot of composition work and we're deciding how to expose things, but lights will really show us a different angle and a different way to express the story and express how we're feeling. Later in a demo, I'll kind of show you how we can create contrast that creates different looks. Contrast can create a moody look, or it can make something very menacing and evil and scary. So really, you can see where in horror films they use less light, it's more about what you don't light, versus a commercial or a car commercial where there's big bright lights everywhere. So really, lighting and lights say a lot about what you're shooting and what you're trying to say. It's really just another tool in filmmaking and in cinematography to express what your compositions is saying and what your story is saying overall. So different lights and different colors will say different things. Red may be passion or anger or anything aggressive. Blue may be cool and calm. Same with like a light green. Color temperature and how you use the light is really expressing those emotions through feeling, through color, through brightness. Soft light is much softer. It's nicer and calmer, whereas hard light is a little bit more harsher and scarier and honest, I think. Back in film noirs, they used much harder shadows with lights. So it's just kind of helping exemplify, again, what you're trying to say and how you're trying to say it. Okay, so we've talked about what exactly lights are and what they are technically and what they're capable of doing. So I'm going to take you through 3 different lighting setups. First, being an interview lighting setup. This is the basis for everything. This is going to be a basic interview lighting setup that you should be able to grasp, walk into any interview, and be able to set up very quickly, and will get you through almost anything. 2, I'm going to take you through sort of a romantic, warm, narrative sort of setting where it'll be kind of narrative-y and it'll be like a nice, like just natural place in like an evening sort of room. And then 3, I'm going to put you in like a very scary, dark, contrasty, moody kind of feeling light. So what we're going to do is I'm going to have Phil come in here in a second. I'm going to have him sit down. I'm going to explain the situation, light him up. You're going to see me kind of running around doing light. I'll stop, I'll explain what I did, show you the different lights, and then we'll do the next one and do the next one. So the first thing I would do is I would come in here and I would look at this room and I would set the white balance to what we're going to do. I'm going to use tungsten balance in here. I'm probably going to turn off these gross fluorescent lights that you can see right now and just figure out what to do next. So first we're going to set up the lights. You'll see me go dark and then you'll see me start to turn lights on in our little time lapse and we'll just go from there. So you ready, Phil?
Yep, let's do it.
So this is what I would use for a 3-point lighting system, a basic interview here on Phil. Now I do have one little light back there, so technically it's 4 lights, but you can kind of see the difference between what this room used to be like and what this room looks like now. So I just want to run with you really quick with what I did. So what I did here was I might have my assistant over here turn off this light. This is a Phil light. Get it? Phil light. F-I-L-L. So if you just push the button to turn it off, you can see that all it really is just filling in the shadows here from our key light. I started with the key light. So let's turn this one off. So you can see this is going to be really where our main light is coming from, and this is what we call the key light. So turn the key light on. So he's lit, right? But now you can see over here on Phil's right side, it's a little shady and it's a little more menacing than we want it to be. So what we're going to do is turn on our Phil light. Our Phil light is filling in, for Phil, the shade on this side, so it's a little more even. Typically that light is usually half a stop to 2 stops less than the stops coming from this light. So we got our key, we got our fill. Now let's look at the backlight. You can see my shadow in it right now, and you can see the light itself in the wide shot here. But in our normal shot, let's turn it off and on. Here's off, on, and you can see how it's giving him just a little bit of an edge when it's on, and it's separating it from the background. So keep it on and off, on and off, on and off. And you see the really difference. The thing I like about the backlights is that it's able to separate them from the background depending on what your background is, and it just adds a nice little dynamic pop to the subject. You can see I did add one light over here, and I can unplug it and plug it in. It's more of an accent light for the background because we're shooting in such a crappy background. But you can see if I take it out, it's just plain back there, and it's just blank and shadowy. By adding this, adds a little bit more dimension with that kind of accent light. So it's nice to kind of have more than 3 lights, but you can get away with just 3 lights if you need them. You never know what situation you're in an interview. Okay, so let's move on to a little bit more romantic, warm, nice kind of movie lighting. So here we have a more warmer, natural kind of movie lighting here we got going on Phil. It's a little bit different than the interview lighting, although not totally dramatically different. What I did was I moved the key light around over to here. So now you have this nice key light coming from the side. I dimmed it down a little bit because our lights that we have are dimmable. I then took our Phil light and actually pointed it down in front of Phil. So it's bouncing a little bit off the floor there, and I lowered the intensity so it's not as intense. You can see there's a little bit of shadow and sound in the center of his face. And then I took our backlight and I moved it over here, and I'm actually bouncing off the wall here, which is a little white. There's a white door, and I'm bouncing the light off the wall. You remember I talked about earlier, lights can either be shot directly at, or they can be bounced, or they can be diffused. This one is actually able to be bounced, and it kind of has a nice bounce. I didn't mention earlier that our key lights and fill lights are diffused with our soft boxes that I had talked about before, which kind of makes a softer light. I then adjusted the backlight here that you can see, not a backlight, but the accent light in the back to kind of close down, and I lowered the intensity, and I changed the color temperature just a little bit because I can, and that makes it look a little bit more interesting. The key here is that we make this look like a nice, warm, natural scene, like he's in the evening at some room, he's just hanging out, as opposed to full-blown lit interview. It's not accented on him or anything, it's just a natural, nice-looking shot based on what this ugly room used to look like. So let's move on to something a little bit more dramatic. I'm gonna light Phil as if he's about to murder somebody. Basically, I wanna make him look really menacing, dark, horror, scary. I'm gonna try a couple different things out. You can see that this narrative stuff takes me a little bit longer to light than the interview. The interview stuff's very cookie cutter, very key light, fill light, backlight, whereas this stuff I kinda have to play around, and it really is dependent on the structure and the place you're at. So here we go. Okay, so here's my menacing Phil look. So really, we gotten some more contrast, more scary, a little more dynamic as far as contrast really more than anything. So I took the key and it's over here now. There's no Phil over here. I mean, there's Phil, but there's no fill light over here. So you can see that there's just a nice dark shape on the right side. I added a really intense backlight. You can see if I block it, what it's doing. See in the wide shot of us that I'm talking to, you can kind of see it down here below, right here. And in the closer shot, it's really just covering and putting a ring around Phil's head right here. As I move my hands through it, you can kind of probably see what it's doing. The big thing about that is I like the ring that it pops him out from the dark background. It's a little more scary. This is a little more contrast. You can see the contrast affects this mood of him just being scary and upset, like he's about to murder somebody. And you can see the effect right here. If I take our key light and I just dim it down and up, you can totally see what it's doing. So this is nothing. And now you can see that the backlight is just taking care of everything. A little more dark, you can't even see the detail in his face as much. But as I pull this up and start to dim up, you can see the different attitude of it. This is really bright. This is probably about where I had it. So it's a little more menacing, a little more contrasty. Alternatively, I did set up a different light you may have seen in the time lapse. We turn this down and pan it off, and I turn on my lower front light. Also, another way to look a little bit more menacing, more scary, it's like having that flashlight at dinner where you only see like the head. And if we turned off the backlight, you can see all we see is Phil just right there in his face and kind of intense. Also, another way to look a little bit more menacing, more scary, it's like having that flashlight at dinner where you only see like the head. And if we turned off the backlight, you can see all we see is Phil just right there in his face and kind of intense. So those are just some really quick examples of how we can change light and use light to affect the scene that we're doing. Using the tools that we have here, there is infinite ways to light a scene. And depending on what you're trying to say and what you're doing and what your composition is, there's a million different ways. Those to me are some very structurally based ways to light things. And if you kind of use that as like your template or a way to start to look at things, you really need to develop your own style of how to light and what you can do to really use the tools that you have to make your story come alive. So one thing to really mention very quickly, when you're doing an interview light and you have your key light set up, you can notice the little glimmer in Phil's eye. That's called an eye light. So it's really nice sometimes to bring contrast to someone's eyes, and it's really pretty looking and aesthetically pleasing. So it's nice when you use your key light as a nice soft source, that'll naturally happen. In different spots you can kind of see and watch movies. Actresses and actors have eye lights in there all the time, and a lot of DPs or cinematographers tend to try and achieve that in close-ups and in medium shots. So we're outside. I wanted to give you a couple tips for natural light. Now we got really lucky. This is my favorite type of light to shoot video in. You can see it's an overcast day. It's totally even light. It's about midday right now, probably late afternoon, and you can see it's just totally flat. Now if we had the sun to battle with, that'd be a little different. If you wanted to add a little bit more light in, the best thing to do is to bring a bounce card or a bounce flex fill. This is a flex fill. I would typically use more of a white bounce card. This is what we got right now. So you can see how you can bounce in all this light on me. You can see off, on, off, on, off, on. And you can see that there's a ton more light with the bounce, and it adds a little bit of glow. It kind of depends on your style. There's also this gold side, which I refuse to use, but I'll show you what it looks like. It's a little warmer, a little cleaner. This is tend to use actually more on models and stuff like that for photography, more so than video. The best thing to do would be using a white card. A white card would be much more clean and solid, especially if you have bright sunlight. That will add the most. The big thing about shooting outside is trying to be in the shade and having this nice even light. Again, we got really lucky. It's definitely overcast, and so it looks nice. This would be a nice scene. I may bring in like a daylight to come out here. If I had a generator on a bigger shoot, I'd bring an HMI or something big to kind of accent the light and make it look a little more dynamic. So we're not in total sunlight here. If we were in sunlight, which I can't show you, there's several things you can do. First, get out of the sun. Second, if you have some sort of diffusion light, typically you can get a big giant muslin or a rag if you're on a big set that you can have the grip set up. It could be a 12 by 12 foot muzz that you can set up to cover your actors. It could be 20 feet by 20 feet. You want to try and get them out of the sun as much as possible. If you can't, if there's no way of you doing that, you want to try and backlight them by the sun. That'll give them a nice rim light, and then you can bounce something in front of them, whether it be a foam core or a white car or something to just fill in that shade. The big thing is to kind of have the sun behind them, and maybe you can add in that flare. It might look pretty. And so also the actors aren't looking into the sun. They'll tend to squint, and that'll just look bad. So the big thing is get them out of the sun, get them in the shade, and if you can't do that, put the sun behind them.
Hey everyone, welcome to another challenge. I hope you've enjoyed this section on lighting techniques. Your challenge today is to go out and practice a 3-point lighting setup. Even if you don't have a nice film lighting kit, you can just find lights or light sources available to you to create a 3-point lighting setup. You can use a big window, which I'm using right now, to be your key light. You can find a desk lamp or something else to be the fill light or the backlight. So we just want you to practice the 3-point lighting setup because this is your go-to lighting setup, whether you're shooting an interview, if you're shooting a talking head video like this, if you're shooting a commercial, narrative, any sort of scene where you're lighting, the 3-point lighting system is your go-to lighting setup. And it's important to really understand how it works so that you can jump in there, set up your lights, and you don't have to worry about how am I going to light this scene. So the challenge is do a 3-point lighting system, take a picture if you can, or a screenshot of the video and post it to the course. and so that we can check it out. So have fun. Let us know if you have any questions. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next section.